Welcome back. Israel is confirming that Hamas has returned 2 more bodies of deceased hostages, identifying them as 84-year-old Amiram Cooper and 25-year-old Sahar Baruch. 11 bodies of hostages remain in Gaza, including those of 2 Americans, but families are holding out hope that they will soon be returned. The Israeli military announced Wednesday that it would resume compliance with the ceasefire in Gaza after a night of airstrikes on terrorist cells reportedly killed more than 100 people there. The IDF says Hamas killed a soldier Tuesday who was actually an Israeli-American citizen. Joining me now is former Senior Director for National Security Council and the Principal Architect of the Abraham Accords, Robert Greenway. Robert, thanks very much for joining us this morning. Your reaction to this ceasefire that was interrupted because of Hamas and where we are today.
Well, good morning, Maria, and thanks again for having me. We're 21 days or 3 weeks into the ceasefire, still essentially in phase 1. As you pointed out, a stark reminder of the terrorists that we're dealing with that would have been responsible for killing an 84-year-old man. We're now at 17 remains of the 28 hostages left. We've had now 2 at least violations by Hamas, firing at Israeli soldiers, killing 3, the 3rd on Tuesday across the yellow line that is still occupied by the Israeli Defense Forces. And so the return of the hostages, the living hostages, is the most important part of this, but it's difficult to see a transition into phase 2 so long as the violations continue. But we always knew that the most important part of this that President Trump secured was the return of the living hostages and support for the region behind the United States and Israel and this plan. And so the transition, of course, is in question, but the fact that it's held for 21 days is still a remarkable achievement, and it leads to hope for all of us that this, in fact, can endure and we can get to a better place and not a restoration of hostilities.
Do you believe that the Iranians and Hamas are trying hard to stop President Trump from expanding the Abraham Accords? I mean, the presidency is shifting his focus to the next diplomatic goal, and that is expanding the landmark Abraham Accords. I spoke with the president on this just last month, and I asked him what he's expecting. Watch this.
Do you expect an expansion of the Abraham Accords?
I do, almost soon. I don't want to use the word immediate, but soon. The Abraham Accords are a miracle in a way. And the 4 countries that went in initially, including UAE, highly respected, big and highly respected, they stayed in, and they're doing incredibly well. I mean, they're basically trading with Israel and have access and everything else. I mean, it's good for everybody. I hope to see Saudi Arabia go in, and I hope to see others go in. I think when Saudi Arabia goes in, everybody goes in.
So they've indicated to you a willingness to do so?
Oh, they have, even as recently as like yesterday. I had some very good conversations.
Robert, he said yesterday, we did this interview in October. What are your thoughts on the Saudis joining the Abraham Accords?
A great interview, by the way. And look, President Trump was the only person that could have concluded the Abraham Accords. He and Jared are likely the only people that are able to support the expansion of it. And look, he was just at ASEAN talking to Indonesian President Subianto, recognized Malaysia and Brunei. He's already starting the process of expanding. And the Accords, in many ways, is about economic prosperity that requires the security cooperation to protect and defend it. And the real economic prosperity here is connecting Asian and European markets. And so even now, as he's making his Asian tour and just returned from it, all of that work supports expansion of the Accords and expansion of movement of goods through the region, including the Middle East, which requires cooperation. And so expansion now, I think, is inevitable. I think only President Trump and his team are able to secure it. And I think he has been successively laying down the foundations for it. And provided that we see at least no regression in the Gaza file, I think we're going to see progress, and probably very soon.
Yeah, and progress, I mean, it's incredible the respect that President Trump has garnered across the world. We saw it in the Middle East to a huge extent. We saw it again in Asia. And you would think that these leaders want to work with him in terms of peace.
There's no question about it. Look, he means what he says. He's focused on not just American interests, but those of our partners and allies that are consistent with us. They recognize and respect it, and he gets results. Every day turns around, we're seeing progress made on some front, on typically trade, especially in the last week. Everyone respects this, and they recognize that prosperity is central, not just to the United States, but to our partners and allies. And this is the agreement that provides for momentum, and this is the momentum that gets results, and that's what the president is uniquely capable of achieving. And I think we're seeing this in real time.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think this is one of the reasons that the Democrats are acting like 7-year-olds by not opening government. They're so upset that he's doing so well.
Yeah, and what's amazing is they're choosing the most ineffective ways to provide resistance to it. So instead of supporting something that's clearly beneficial to the United States, our partners and allies, Israel, and American interests, they're finding ways in which to oppose them that generally have no support and are completely counterproductive. And again, closing down the government is one of the most ineffective things that could be done, and the impact on the American people is adverse. So the choice becomes incredibly clear: support a president and his policies that are clearly good for the United States and its citizens, or on the other hand, support a party that supports destruction and lack of progress. And I think it becomes clear every day.
Yeah, I do not think this is going to end well for the Democrats. I think most people understand that this is a subject on health care that both parties have been trying to work on and get and fix. And they're supposed to be doing this by the end of the year. But to insist that they're not going to open government and affect all of these families who are not getting paid, these military families and federal worker families, it's just extraordinary what's going on right now. And I do worry that this is going to turn into a serious economic shock. And that's when the rubber will hit the road. Already we're worried about whether or not to travel. I mean, then there's this. Pakistan and Afghanistan agreed to maintain a ceasefire after the peace talks in Istanbul. Those negotiations were arranged by Turkey and other allies, meaning to ease border tensions between the two countries after they exchanged fire earlier this month, leaving dozens of soldiers and civilians dead. The nations will meet for more peace talks in Istanbul on November 6th to stabilize ceasefire details. Again, President Trump helping here. Your reaction?
Yeah, yet another example of where the president is able to achieve progress where few others could. And this is an area where it is rife with conflict, and it is defined by the conflict between these two sides. So it's not at all surprising, one, to see the problem. It's not surprising to see President Trump weigh in to get results and progress again. But I will say that the patterns of terrorists in this part of the world are very similar to the migratory patterns of most bird species. And so they're going to close down for the winter as the terrain becomes impassable. But I suspect by spring, very likely, they'll be added again. But as long as we've got a president committed to peace, I think we're likely to see at least a containment of this so that it doesn't spread.
That's a great point on the terrain and why you see a slowdown during the winter months. Robert, what is your take on China? Communist China, our number one adversary, has to have been watching President Trump on the global stage throughout the Middle East and throughout Asia and understand that the free world is with President Trump and with America. But they undermine the U.S., try to undermine the United States all the time, and yet President Trump was able to do a trade deal with the CCP. Your reaction?
Look, China is one of the greatest adversaries the United States has ever faced. It has an explosive military growth and a stated intent to confront our interests at every quarter. And it has been allowed to obtain remarkable advantage over us from an economic and a security perspective. President Trump woke the world and the United States up to that in his first term. He's doing so in the second. It takes time to restore American advantage from a military perspective and economic perspective. And his negotiations are designed to do that with Australia and our Asian partners in South Korea and Japan. He is setting the stage for us to resume American dominance over rare earths and artificial intelligence and expanding our military growth to check Chinese ambitions and growth. It will take time to do it. At least we've got a president that recognizes it's a problem and is committed to resolving it, and he's making progress in doing it.
Yeah, I think he's the first president to take on the CCP, and so smart to align himself with all of those allies, beginning with Australia, going into the Asian economies, Japan, Malaysia, Taiwan, et cetera, to align himself with all of those allies before the Xi Jinping meeting. Really smart. Robert, great to see you. We so appreciate your time this morning, sir.
My pleasure. Always great to be with you. Thanks, Maria.